You've been asking for us for years, and now finally, we're making a Key Stage 3 scheme of learning.
Hello and welcome back to another At the Chalk Face by Craig and Dave. We both used to teach computer science in the county of Gloucestershire in comprehensive and grammar schools, and have since gone part-time and now full-time into our own resource company, giving you everything you need for computing at secondary school. And notice, Dave, how I said at secondary school and not Key Stage 4 and 5. Woohoo! Predominantly up till now, we've only resourced the examination years, but it's out. We launched this at our Festival of Computing back in July. At the time of you watching this video, if you don't know, it's all live on our website. You can get in and get access to the first 8 units, but we now provide full coverage from year 7 to 13. So that's what we want to talk to you about today. Maybe you're aware and you have some questions. Maybe you're all over it. Maybe it's the first time you're hearing about it, but we are going to talk to you about our new Key Stage 3 offer.
Yeah, so for full transparency, at the moment we have 8 units of our Key Stage 3 available. You would probably need 18 to have a full scheme of learning. So our intention is that we're going to create 8 this year, 8 next year, 8 the year after. That will give you more than 18, which will allow you to pick and choose some units to build your own scheme. So we have split out our resource centre now into the key stages. We've now given you the option to choose what aspects of the resource centre you want access to. So Key Stage 3, if you want 12 months access to what we've got available, it's £299 plus VAT. Most schools can claim back the VAT. And then Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5 have been split out so that you don't need to buy the complete bundle for that anymore. You could just buy Key Stage 4 or just buy Key Stage 5 at a much reduced price.
Anything you download during the period of your access, your school then has a lifetime license to use. So, it's not that this is an online platform with the resources, then you don't get access. That's always been some confusion. So 299 gives you 12 months of access to download that, plus any updates, tweaks, and all the rest of it. But anything you download, you have a lifetime license for that school.
There is a question out there, though, which... people are very quick to work out, which is if it's £299 to access everything that we've produced, why wouldn't you just wait 3 years and pay £299 and get the complete scheme of learning with all the units we've produced? I mean, why pay £299 every year, essentially, is the question.
Yeah, well, we'll do that if you want, but you won't get access to any new Key Stage 3 curriculum resources for the next 2 years. And I would argue you want them from September. That sounds, really glib there from me. I don't mean it quite like that. But yeah, you totally can do that. We want to make our resources affordable. We always have. We know how tight budgets are, but giving away everything from Key Stage 4 and 5 for the last 8-9 years for, £149 or £179, has been well undercosted. Thousands of resources, entire 4-year journey, and we just can't do that anymore. So what we want to do is get in there early, give you enough to get going. And this is the same, by the way, as when we first introduced Key Stage 4 and 5, Dave. We didn't have the whole 2-year A-level or 2-year GCSE, but we promised we'd keep developing and we'd keep ahead. The aim is to get stuff out to you as soon as possible. I mean, I think we've probably been first to market with this, even before the draft national curriculum is out, and we'll get onto that on our commitments. We want to be first to market. We want you to feel prepared, and then we want to promise to be on that journey with you. And therefore, that allows us to keep that price down. A lot of other providers sell units for upwards of 70, 80, 90, £120 for a single unit. And we're like, well, stick with us for 3 years. You'll get more than enough units. You can keep them for life. That's been the model we've always gone with. And we do have a lot of customers who've been with us now for 8, 9, 10 years, and they will buy access for a year, download stuff, and then maybe take a year off and come back a year later and go, oh, what new have you got? Because they know anything they get during their access, they can keep for life. Is that fair, Dave?
Yeah, that's completely fair. And it is really just a way that schools can support us. Okay. If you're in a school where money is tight and you can't afford very much, then we want to be able to find a way to support you. So you wait your 2-3 years, You buy it once, you've got everything you need. For those schools that are in a position to support us on our journey, and thank you, we couldn't do it without the kind of
No.
support from those schools. This enables them to find a way to support us year on year on year without the finance team, you know, I don't know how to put this really, without the finance team wondering kind of why you're supporting an organization in the way that you are. I don't really know how to express that, Craig, to be honest with you, but it's just about you having a way to support us that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so I alluded to the fact that obviously the draft national curriculum for our brand new programme of study isn't even out yet. So that leads me nicely on to the next point we were going to cover, which is, why Key Stage 3 and why now? And also, so why soon? So the reason we've avoided Key Stage 3 for all these years is because, quite frankly, when we came to the game, there were enough excellent Key Stage 3 providers out there, and they were well established. There's no point in us competing in a market where it's well established. Some, wonderful free offers out there by various sort of government organisations and other charities, and plenty of private providers. And the Key Stage 3 was quite developed, so we didn't touch it. Then, of course, the massive curriculum review dropped. We knew everything was changed. It came out and was like, aha, everything's going to change. There's a big shift. There's a big focus. There's modernisation, bringing in AI, everything else. This is an opportunity now to do what we do well and join the game. So that was the driver for us doing it. Why have we pushed it as soon as we could before even the draft curriculum review out? It's alluded to what I said earlier. We want to get this stuff in your hands as soon as possible. We know the draft curriculum will come out sometime in September, the government have currently said, with the actual full version out in spring. But if the new computing GCSE goes into the first tranche of the reform, which all indications say it will, then your year sevens, starting in a couple of months, will be the first set of students to take the new GCSE. So you need these new units now. Well, if you need them now, we needed to start thinking about them and developing them a while ago. So do you want to address, Dave, take that question in your own slant, but maybe also explain what confidence we have, though we have never seen a draft curriculum, and kind of our commitments to what we're going to do if it comes out and all of a sudden we find it doesn't quite match? Because I know there's some questions about that, and how have we managed to bring something out so early?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been teaching for 30 years, and so I am very confident in the kinds of things that young people are going to need to learn. I've also keep my ear close to the ground. I do an awful lot of reading about education and what's happening with the national curriculum and things like that. And we are also seeing tides change in our subject. And we know that AI is a big thing. We know that there are a lot of increasing ethical debates. We know that there was a big shift away from applications to computer science and programming. Mm-hmm. And we know that that is going to sort of shift back again a little bit because it turned off a lot of learners and the entry numbers are declining as a result. So really, it's just about reading the room, I would say, and just pulling on all our experience and, having a real sense of the direction things are likely to go by reading between the lines from all the publicly available material. It's not that we're special. It's not that we have loads of insider information. It's just that we keep our ears close to the ground and we do a lot of thinking and a lot of reflecting on our subject and our teaching to put us in a good position. And as I say, Key Stage 3 isn't new to me. I've been planning Key Stage 3 lessons for a long time, so this isn't new. It was just that it was also a capacity issue. There's only Craig and I, and we went where we knew teachers needed the most support, which was initially A-level, and then we went to GCSE. Then we identified that there were problems in GCSE and A-level classrooms, so we created both Time to Code and Smart Revise. And, we've just been really, really busy at the top end. Now that those specifications are so mature and we're awaiting further reforms, it's just given us that little bit of opportunity to say, okay, what should we do with our time right now? And as it happened, the new national curriculum was proposed, and it felt the right time to kind of get on board with that. So and a lot of teachers have been asking us, they say, oh, we really like what you're doing at A level, we really like what you're doing at GCSE. Can we please have some Key Stage 3? And as you rightly say, we have said for a long time, well, there's no point us reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
There are plenty of schemes out there. They're good enough, a little bit of adaptation. There are lots of other paid for resource providers that provide, very good resources for Key Stage 3. What's the point in us doing that? Let us specialize in doing something different and new at Key Stage 4 and 5. But now we know that we can do something different and new at Key Stage 3, which is why it feels right to do it now.
Yeah, perfect. Yes. And I mean, just to be completely clear on the other point of my question, was, well, what do we do if it comes out and we find it's not completely aligned? We would fully expect that once the draft curriculum comes out imminently in the government space, what does imminent mean? Well, it's meant to be September, but we expect when it comes out, we'll look at it and go, oh, okay, there's a slight nuance there that we didn't quite see, and we've put that in a unit. We expect that. What we couldn't do was wait for it to come out before we started even planning, because you wouldn't have anything now. With everything Dave said, all our experience, analysing all the public information, the reports, the responses, we are pretty confident that we've got it damn close. But we
And
are
to be
committed.
fair,
Go on, Dave.
sorry, I was just going to say, and to be fair, our intention was always to wait until spring 2027. We were going to develop all these units in the background, and then make all the changes that were necessary when we saw the national curriculum and it was finalised, and then publish something that we didn't then hopefully need to further update again, and we could just work on new units. But again, the community out there, I mean, thank you so much for your support, but the community are putting pressure on us and saying, Craig and Dave, if you've got something, let us have it. And so,
well, that's what we've done. But yes, so when that document comes out, we will be on it. I mean, we will forensically analyse it. We'll look through all the 8 units which are already available on our site, and we will tweak and we will adapt. And remember, that 12 months access allows you to download constantly during that period. So any updates, any tweaks, any movements or adaptations we have to make to the units you may already have, you'll be able to grab them for free. And anyone getting access from now will have that access for 12 months. So it'll be well within that period that we'll be releasing the tweaks and the updates. And if you wait a bit longer, you'll get the units in a finished state anyway. We're pretty sure that they're solid anyway. So there you go. That kind of wraps up why now and what we're going to do. So it'd be nice now, Dave, I think, if we went right back to the very beginning, because once we've made the decision, right, to say, okay, we're going to do this, curriculum review, good opportunity, let's do it. We didn't just dive in, did we, on a call and go, right, what do we think we should do? Oh, you should probably do one on programming, Craig, and I'll do one on applications and ethics. We took the better part of 6 months, didn't we? Just stepping back from everything and really coming up with what I called like a wish list, without thinking at that point whether it was possible, what all the things we'd like to see. And what we ended up with is something we call our intent implementation impact document. So maybe just talk a little bit about that really early stage, that analysis and design that we keep wishing the students would pay more attention to in A level.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to dive straight in and start creating materials. That's where the creativity is and the excitement is. It's the thing that we really enjoy doing. But we didn't want to do too much backtracking. We didn't want to kind of put something together and then realize that we were going to coalesce around something else, have to go back and make a lot of changes. And we just knew, being software developers ourselves, that it wasn't a good approach. To just get straight going with the code is not a good idea. The time you spend on analysis is really, really valuable. And then obviously the design stage. So we took that approach and said, right, before we create anything, what would we want this to look like? both in terms of the actual units we would produce, and we just brainstormed, names of units and applications, and just tried to capture everything. Of course, this was at a time when we didn't know anything really about the draft national curriculum, and so we were literally throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that's how we came up with the unit titles for about 35 units. Will we ever make 35 units? I don't know. I suspect not. But we literally just threw the mud at the wall and said it doesn't matter what they come up with on the national curriculum, because one way or another in these 35 units, we must have covered it, because there's only so much in computing that young people need to know, right? So that was the first thing. And then the second thing, more pedagogically, as you say, Craig, we thought, well, what should a Key Stage 3 scheme of learning look like? And we sort of drew on our extensive experience. And we're not being arrogant there. It's just that you can't replace the 25, 30 years of experience of teaching young people. And we've seen a lot of initiatives come and go in school. We've seen a lot of research come in and be implemented in school and then fade away. And so what we wanted to do was try and capture as much of what we thought was important as possible. And that resulted in what is currently, I think, 58 points of principle that we decided whatever we make, it must not contradict these 58 points of principle. And that gave us a real structure and a real framework, because of course what can happen, Craig and I work remotely, so what can happen is we think we know and agree what we're going to do. Craig goes off and does his thing. I go off and do my thing. And then what you end up with is a mix and match, where it's like, oh, well, I thought I'd have one key question for the unit. And you thought, well, I'll have one key question for each lesson. And I decide what I think extension activities should look like. And you decide what you think extension activities should look like. And then we have disagreements about homework and all these things. And we decided that would be a really, really bad idea. And what we should do instead is literally debate for 6 months what this thing should be like, and argue with each other until we could come to a conclusion about what we thought was the right way forward. I think it's important to say that what we think won't necessarily agree with what you think. You will have your own ideas about what a Key Stage 3 should look like. And I'm sure some of it won't match our thoughts. That's fine. You can adapt what we've produced to your own way of working as well.
Yeah. And it's worth saying we've been completely transparent with this. These 58 principles, this kind of intent, implementation and impact document, the thing that drives the framework of our unit and all the things we want to put in, it's not some hidden document. We'll tell you how to find the Key Stage 3 website later. It's on there and you can download it and you can see it. And we did return, didn't we, Dave, after we'd written our first prototype unit, and then further on, once we'd done our next couple, we returned having done units and went through the entire document and said, have any of these fallen by the wayside? Where any of these nice laudable ideas, but actually in the implementation of making this thing, they didn't get in. What's the reason? And so we really we still evolve the document, but we're happy now. So you'll be able to get access to that document as well. And if you have SLT saying, well, why is this scheme work any good? Why does it do this? You go, well, here you go. Intent, implementation, impact, 58 principles, all categorized. That should hopefully keep anyone happy. But we're just going to pick out a few things now from that document. Don't worry, we're not going to go through all 58. You can download and look at it yourself. But we just want to pick out a few points, as well as sort of some of the things which are familiar with our Key Stage 3, and also some of the things that are different. But in terms of things I'd like to pick out, Dave, one of the things we were very keen on really early on was minimal marking for teachers. So this one really is for teachers, not necessarily for students. We know what the workload is like. We know where you have to put the effort in marking. It needs to be at Key Stage 4, at Key Stage 5, when you can have multiple Key Stage 3 classes on 1 hour a week with 30 kids in each. That marking builds up. We do need to give marking and feedback, but it needs to be for a purpose. So none of our what we call learn it lessons, the first 4 lessons of a unit, have anything that is marked. It's all about learning, doing, students capturing information in their work, but they can refer to later. But we have no marking in those first 4 lessons at all. And in fact, and this ties in nicely with the other thing I wanted to mention, Dave, the only thing you mark in a unit as a teacher is what we call the end product, the artifact, the goal. So students spend 4 lessons learning through doing and experimenting and class discussion. You lead all of this. They capture information as they go, so they have it to refer to. And this all builds to a 5th lesson that we call a make it lesson. And that's where the students take all that knowledge, collate it together, and produce something that demonstrates their understanding of the learning. And that is the one thing that you mark. That's the one thing that has weight and it has purpose. So there's a couple of things there, Dave. I don't know if you had any others or wanted to exemplify anything else there on those I said, but I thought those were worth mentioning.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that is the principles in action right to there, that we decided, why does marking exist?
Yeah.
Who's it for? What should it look like? How often should it take place?
Yeah.
And what are the pressures on real teachers in computing classrooms? And putting all that in the mix and then coming out with the idea that there's one thing to mark, students produce it in lesson 5, and then you mark that. And so that consistency now is really important because it's a principle. And we toyed around with quite a few ideas in the early days about whether lessons could be split in half, and you would have the first half learning something and the second half applying it to the thing that would eventually be marked. And then you get to lesson 2 and you learn something new in the first half, and then you apply it to the thing that's then building up for assessment later, and then continue that with lesson 3, lesson 4, lesson 5, lesson 6. So at the end of the 6 lessons, you end up having built something up over a period of those 6 lessons that then gets marked. So that was something that we were doing for quite a long time. And then we just decided to ditch that approach. And that's a feature really of our Key Stage 3, that an awful lot of good ideas have hit the cutting room floor. And we've decided that although they are good ideas, they create other problems that we really don't need. And sometimes less is more. So we ended up in this situation instead, where we just decided, no, students will learn something for 4 lessons. They'll then apply it to an assessed piece of work in 1 lesson in lesson 5, and then we'll review it in lesson 6. And that's what we decided we're going to do. So now we've got that framework, it means that we are forced to apply it to everything that we now produce moving forward. And it means that Craig and I have got those sort of frameworks and scaffolds, so that we can't just go in our own direction and break the thing that was important. And so that's just one example that you've picked out. For me, another thing is that it's flipped classroom, or it's not flipped classroom, to be more accurate. Okay. What I mean by that is that at Key Stage 4 and 5, we were very keen to implement what was at the time a very new pedagogy. And it completely changed up what it meant for homework. It completely changed up what it meant for classwork. It completely changed up what it meant for teacher-led lessons. And let's be fair, it's been Marmite. There are some teachers out there that absolutely love it. I'm one of them. I know you're one of them. There are actually thousands of teachers out there in the UK that agree with us and they think it's brilliant. There are, though, a very vocal set of teachers that think it's crazy and it doesn't possibly work in their classroom. They can't get their head around it. Their students won't do it. And they just want to teach the way they were taught to teach. Fair play. That's fine. And so we had a critical decision to make with Key Stage 3. Do we follow that pedagogy forward into Key Stage 3? Because we've done it at Key Stage 5, we've done it at Key Stage 4. There would be benefits at Key Stage 3. Do we do that? And we came to the conclusion that we were not going to do that. And so we wanted our Key Stage 3 to have an essence of flipped classroom when it comes to homework, and maybe we'll get on to that. But it's not really flipped classroom. And then in the lessons themselves, we wanted a very sort of teacher-directed approach that is not flipped classroom.
Yeah, that's fair, and that kind of leads on to some of the things about what's familiar. We did the other thing you can do, I think, when you become a resource provider and you're out of the classroom, is you start coming up with wacky ideas and think this is cool, and you forget the reality of what it's actually like in that classroom, back down on the chalk face, and that's something Dave and I are very keen not to do when we obviously left teaching full time. So we still regularly go into schools. Dave and I are both associated with local schools. We run these units, we watch them being taught, we visit and speak to students and teachers. So we knew we had to keep aspects of this familiar, because again, you don't often have a lot of the thinking time and capacity proportionally for Key Stage 3 as you'd like to when you're focusing on 4, 5 and everything else. So we wanted things to keep familiar. So the things that you will be familiar, probably from any Key Stage 3 unit you've taught or bought or designed yourself, they are teacher led. I kind of say teacher introduced. We do like the idea of students kind of learning through doing. So you're not standing at the front talking for 20 minutes to the students and then do an activity, but you are in control of that pace of the lesson. You lead it. There are introductions, there are class discussions to wrap up and correct misconception. It will feel familiar to you. Obviously, we have objectives throughout our scheme of learning. Whether your school calls them objectives or learning outcomes, they're all editable. You can change the language to fit your school, but lessons start and are finished with, these are the things you're going to know, these are the things we're going to do today, these are the objectives for the lesson. Again, familiar to every teacher, no matter what you happen to call them in your school. We've stuck with the typical structure. You'd expect a Key Stage 3 to be 6 lessons. We know some terms are 6 and some are 7 and some are 8, and some of you have it on a carousel and then you think you've got 6, but sports day comes in and you've got 5. But we've stuck to it and made 6 lessons. But again, we've built in lots of additional stuff like extension activities and material allow you to spin units out for longer periods if you have the luxury of more time. But we're stuck with 6 lessons. And just like you'd expect now, we've got a mix of activities. There's individual work, there's paired work, there's group work, there's stuff on the computer, there's unplugged. What we have done is not deliberately try and mix it up to kind of be funky. What we've made sure is that the activity and the type of activity is appropriate for learning for that particular thing. So if it fits a group activity better, that's why we've chosen it, not simply because, we haven't planned a group activity in a while, we better force one in. So we've always used the most appropriate activity and delivery method, and all those things will probably hopefully feel very familiar to any Key Stage 3 you're already delivering.
Yeah, absolutely right, Craig. It was important that it was very familiar. We were concerned that it could be scary if we did something different. We were concerned, and this is perhaps a fault of our Key Stage 4 and especially our A-level resources, that if you just pick them up out of the box, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, here's a load of activities, but now here's this mysterious thing called an SLR. It's just a blank sheet of paper. What am I supposed to do with all this? It needs quite a bit of explanation. And once you've got your head around it, you realize, this is really cool. This could make a real difference, but it does require quite a lot of understanding. We didn't want that at Key Stage 3. We knew that there were going to be a lot of non-specialist teachers that were going to pick this up, and they were going to be scared about having to teach some of this. And it was really important that we made it something that was grounded in your existing experience.
Yeah.
And so on the surface, it does look like our Key Stage 3 is just like any other Key Stage 3. Okay?
But it's not.
No, but it's not. Go for it.
Yeah, this is where we go. I realise we're clearly passionate and excited about this because this is already becoming one of our longer videos. So, but we must talk to you about what's different. Otherwise, why would you buy it? Well, there are several things. Our big one has to be the careers focus. We want to it. How many times have you had a student, Dave, or you, teacher who's watching this, why are we learning this? What's the point? I certainly had it a lot.
Yeah, and then
Well,
the careers leader knocking on my door saying, how does your subject relate to careers? And then I'm sort of scrabbling around trying to put some documents together and fudging it, because let's face it, it doesn't.
yeah, that's it. So every unit, every single unit is based around and titled as a career. Yes, underneath it, it has a computing related title to it. But from the student's point of view, it's I'm a digital safety educator, I'm a programmer, I'm a journalist, whatever it happens to be. I'm a computer vision engineer. We've had some fun coming up with those. And it's not just lip service, is it, Dave? It's not like that's it. We start every unit off with a video from somebody in that career talking to the students and saying, these are the skills you need to get into this career. These are the things you're going to learn. And by the end of this unit, you're going to be able to produce something like this. This is what I do in my everyday life. We introduce pioneers in the field, both male and female. So you've got examples of people that they can look up to. And then at the end of the unit, we come back and we assess how well they've done in that career by giving them a career badge. So in essence, you can say, well, I've completed that unit, I've done my artifact, and I achieved the investigative journalist career as a senior or an associate or an intern. So we've got this, it's fully infused throughout. And I must say, the initial feedback from that at the festival and people has been excellent. They really like it. Just trying to make it somewhat relatable to the kids. So now the questions will be, well, I still don't like it. Yeah, but it no longer it's like, well, why am I learning it? What's the point? We've got that one covered. I can't do
It
anything
will be.
about.
Now it will be, but I don't want to be an investigative journalist.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but you need to be able to identify fake news because it's good for you in real life.
And there you go. There's an example of where the underlying skill is what's actually being taught, the importance of fake news and bias, but that's not how we framed it up to the students. So we've called it investigative journalist. Brilliant. Key question, that's another thing. I mean, these are obviously quite popular in schools, but every school seems to focus on your warts and your wilfs and all the rest of it, and your objectives and your learning outcomes. We decided very early on, you know what, regardless of whether lessons have individual learning outcomes and objectives, we think everything over the course of the unit should ultimately building towards one key question. So we've framed it around that. And of course, it's a key question that a person in that career would be able to answer, something that's pivotal to what they do in their career. And we introduce that at the start of every lesson, and we recap it at the end of every lesson. So yeah, that's something we toyed with that, didn't we? We toyed with a key question for each lesson and thought, well, that's not really going to work because we've got 2 objectives per lesson. We're just rephrasing the objectives as a key question. And then we came back with, no, you can have one overarching, core key question to this career, to this unit, and their ability to answer that and answer it in depth should therefore build over time as they learn more in each lesson and as they cover more objectives.
It's how we solve that problem of, I discussed earlier, the fact that in the early days, we thought that maybe lessons could be split in half and they would build over time in terms of the artifact that they were going to produce by the end. And in the end, that hit the cutting room floor. But we wanted to retain something about building over time. We won't talk about spiral curriculum because we have put spiral curriculum in here as well. But building over time across a series of lessons, yes, we wanted them to be individual and have an individual identity with their own objectives, but we also wanted them to point back to both the career, as you said, and to the unit as a whole. And so this is how we achieved that. We decided instead of having the key question for every single lesson, let's have a key question for the unit, and every lesson has to point back and answer part of that bigger key question. And that's how we've achieved that. I wanted to take on differentiation,
okay,
Craig, because
careful.
Exactly, this spans, familiar and different. For a long time in schools, differentiation really meant differentiation by task. Something that Craig and I have always been a little bit uncomfortable with. We're not going to go into the pedagogical reasons for that. But suffice to say, it was another one of those critical decisions. What do we do with differentiation? And in the end, we concluded that it was right that all students should be able to access the same activities and the same objectives and the same aspects of the key question. because we want all students to have those equal opportunities. And so instead of differentiation by task, we've got adaptive teaching. The idea is you don't change the task, you don't change the objective. What you do is scaffold through your teaching to enable students to reach that objective. So just being upfront, you are not going to find loads of differentiated tasks in a Craig and Dave scheme of learning. It's just not something we believe in. If that's not for you, then our scheme is not for you. And we just have to be, proud of our own principles, that we think all students should be able to access the same tasks. And what changes is how you support the students to do that through your interventions in the classroom.
Yeah, and we do provide lots of scaffolding in those tasks in order to help you build up. We're not saying, we haven't thought about it. I'm not saying it's all up to you. Certain tasks will have hint frameworks and other things, and you challenge the students like, well, try and your challenge is to do this task without reading any of the hints on there. They're all hidden, but if you need them, read a hint first before asking me. So we do provide support through scaffolding. We don't just ignore it. Yeah.
There are a few other things I think are really important for teachers to know. I think literacy and vocabulary was absolutely critical to us. Again, it was one of those very early decisions that we wanted every lesson to have its key vocabulary up front. And so that students knew exactly what terms they were going to be learning, and that critically throughout the student and teacher presentations, these were highlighted. And so we took, again, the decision of one of the principles being that any key vocabulary that is subject specific is going to be in purple text, and it's going to be emboldened so that it stands out a little bit without it being completely intrusive. And then when you get to the assessment in lesson 6 in the review stage, we wanted part of the assessment to be assessing their knowledge of the key subject terms. So vocabulary, literacy, oracy, all those things are really, really important, and they're built into the scheme. The other thing that was important to me, and again, this could be a little bit contentious potentially, but I know that a lot of schools out there, because of the initiatives that happened in the sort of 2010s, a lot of the ways of thinking about teaching have been this sort of I do, we do, you do approach and philosophy. So in other words, I do, it means the teacher demonstrates something. We do, we then do something together. And then you do, the students do something on their own. That fits certain subjects and certain tasks really well. You can see how that works in science really beautifully. If you want to do an experiment, it makes sense for the teacher to demonstrate it, and then for the students and the teacher to be doing something together as part of that demonstration. And then the students go off and do their own experiments and record their results. You can see how that works. You can see how that works in maths very easily. Does it work in computing? Yes, it does. It does for things like programming. Absolutely. But it doesn't work for everything. If you want to have an ethical debate about something, if you want to explore the use of large language models, it can work, but we didn't want to be restricted to that. And importantly, we wanted to be able to flip that so that we end up with a you do, we do, I do. That's a bit strange, isn't it? But it's this idea of, instead of, as Craig said earlier, standing at the front and spending 20 minutes saying, this is how computers store numbers, and talking about binary, and this is how computers add up numbers, and doing a bit of binary addition. You could do that. The students are going to get switched off. Yeah. We identified through all our teaching experience that students need to explore, get going, give something a try. And if you want to build that perseverance over time and that resilience when they get to unfamiliar situations, then it's really important that you teach those skills. And so instead of the I do coming first, which means they are then spoon-fed and they become dependent on their teacher, flip it round. Give them a sheet of binary and say, this binary number is 48, this binary number is 65, this binary number is 108, and get them to try and spot the pattern, get them to work it out, get them to see if they can work out what's going on their own. You could give them a little number line. This isn't about obfuscating it. This is about just getting their curiosity and resilience and perseverance. And then they can discuss that with a partner. And so it becomes the we do. And they can kind of work out, oh yeah, this is definitely what's happening, because if we're right about this, then it should work in this way for this one. Oh yes, it does. We must have that right. And then you can do the I do bit at the end, where you gather the class back together and then you reflect on, okay, how does this work? And you can consolidate it. You can address any misconceptions, any little inaccuracies that the students might have come up with as they approach their journey.
And this is why I said earlier, it's kind of teacher-led, but I prefer to call it teacher-introduced, because you frame it, you do lead the lesson, you frame the discussion, and then the learning ideally happens through discovery. And as Dave said, coming back in there at the end there to consolidate correct misconceptions. So it's just a slight switch, but we think the learning through discovery is the way to keep those students switched on and engaged.
Yeah, two other quick things.
Go on.
We'll move on. I will make these. I will make these much quicker. We wanted the workbooks to be more than just workbooks. Yeah. We know what happens. You start the lesson, and then you get a knock on the door. Can I have Alice, please? And Alice has to leave, and then you never see Alice again until the next lesson. And all of a sudden you're asked to produce work for Alice to do. It's just completely unsatisfactory. We wanted the workbook to help the students, so that if you put something up on the board, they have a copy of it in their workbook, and it's probably a more detailed version than the one that you had up on the board. So all the scaffolding and all the support and all the tasks are fully explained in the student workbook. So it's more than a workbook. It's actually the instruction itself as well, so that the students aren't saying, oh, could you just go back a slide, please? Oh, can we just have that again, please? It's all in the workbook, so they don't really need anything more than that. And it's really important when we're teaching applications that you've got, help sheets, guide sheets, that kind of thing. They're all built into the workbook. So again, hopefully you're not dealing with lots and lots of different files. And the last thing I was going to say, Craig, was our lesson 6, I think, is quite unique. So just to outline again, we've got 4 lessons of learning, new material. We've got 1 lesson, our lesson 5, for assessment. And our lesson 6 is your DIRT time, your dedicated improvement and reflection time. And this, again, was one of our key principles right at the beginning, is how do we do, sort of reflections and improvements, and how do we build it in so it's not bolted on?
And we make it meaningful while only having 1 lesson a week.
Yeah. So we decided it was important to have a lesson for that. And this is the only lesson where I'll go into a little bit more detail. We start with a 24-question multiple choice quiz. It's always 24 questions. It's always a multiple choice quiz. And it always focuses on the concepts and key terms that the students have learnt throughout the previous 4 and then the assessment lesson. They can be self-assessed. They could be peer assessed. You could mark them as a teacher if you want to. You could stick them into a forms and get it to be marked electronically if you want to. You can do what you like with that. The second part is then a self-reflection and peer review of the artifact, having a look at what they've actually produced, looking at the mark scheme, and coming to a judgment on what they've done and what they could do to improve. The third part of the lesson is then reflecting on a series of I can statements, and the student, again, self-assessing whether they can or can't do particular aspects of skills and knowledge. And then when you've got time left, the students can then go and make those improvements. And if there's nothing for them to improve, as Craig already says, we've got a load of extension activities that would allow you to expand the lessons out. So the DIRT lesson was really important to us as well.
Cool. I mean, we could go on. This is one of our longer videos, but I can't apologise because we've got so much to say. But very quickly then, we've got 2 things. So where are we going from here, and how can you find out more? Well, where we go from here is we carry on creating units. We provide updates to you. You can go now, buy Resource Centre access, select Key Stage 3, and you can download our first 8 units. That's where you start. Where we will go is we'll promise to tweak and review the units that are already out when the curriculum comes out, and we're committing to producing new units and releasing those next year and the year after. That's our commitment to you. Where to find out more? Well, just head to our website, craiganddave.org. Craig, the letter N, dave.org. You can't miss it, as we've got a huge splash screen as soon as you hit the first homepage. There's so you can get to the pedagogy there. Dave's producing some lovely little videos, much shorter than this one, just highlighting aspects of what to expect in a zip file and what a lesson looks like. And obviously, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at admin@craiganddave.co.uk. Happy to answer your questions. Any closing thoughts, Dave, before we end the video?
It's still not too late to change some aspects of our direction. Some things may be set in stone. Other things are a little bit more fluid as we get the new national curriculum. So if you have got any thoughts, please put them in the comments below and join our conversation. If you are a member of our resource centre, if you have access to our resource centre or Smart Revise, then you can access Mission Control, our exclusive Facebook group. So please join the conversation over there as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, everyone. If you stuck with us this long, thank you. You're a true disciple. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye, everyone.